German Shepherd was found, crying beside rotten food. Waste, what baby did, next left. Everyone in tears. Like, share, subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. This story will change how you see compassion forever. The crying wouldn't stop. It cut through the morning mist like a knife through silence, raw and desperate. The kind of sound that made Helen's chest tighten, even though she'd heard plenty of suffering in her 72 years. She gripped her grandson Marcus's small hand tighter as they walked past the abandoned Rosario's restaurant. Its windows boarded up for 3 months now, weeds already claiming the parking lot. "Grandma, someone's hurt," Marcus said, his 5-year-old voice carrying that certainty only children possess. His brown eyes, so much like his late grandfather's, searched the empty lot with determination that seemed too old for his small frame. "Keep walking, sweetheart," Helen murmured, but her feet had already slowed. The crying grew louder, not human, she realized, but somehow more heartbreaking because of it. "Marcus, we need to get to the store before—" But Marcus had already pulled free from her grip. His worn sneakers slapped against the cracked asphalt as he ran toward the dumpsters behind the building, where the sound originated. Helen's arthritis protested as she hurried after him, her heart hammering not from exertion, but from fear of what they might find. The smell hit them first, rotting food mixed with something else, something that made Helen's stomach turn. Garbage bags torn open, their contents spilled across the ground in a feast for flies. And there, pressed against the brick wall, as if trying to disappear into it, was a German Shepherd. Marcus froze 3 feet away. The dog's ribs showed through matted fur that might have been beautiful once. Black and tan turned gray with dirt and neglect. An infected wound on its rear leg wept yellow fluid, but it was the eyes that made Helen gasp. Amber eyes that held such profound sadness, it seemed impossible for an animal to carry that much grief. The dog was crying, not barking, not whimpering, but crying, real tears streaming down its face as it nosed through spoiled meat, gagging with each attempt to eat. A leather collar hung loose around its thin neck, the nameplate scratched beyond reading, deliberate marks that spoke of someone trying to erase identity, erase responsibility, erase love. "Oh no," Marcus whispered, and in those 2 words was more understanding than most adults could muster. He dropped to his knees right there in the filth, his Batman backpack sliding off his shoulders. "You're so hungry you're trying to eat bad food." The German Shepherd's head snapped up, body tensing. Helen reached for Marcus, ready to pull him back, but something in the dog's posture stopped her. It wasn't aggression. It was fear mixed with something else. Hope, maybe, or just exhaustion too complete for fight or flight. "Marcus, don't—" Helen started, but her grandson was already unzipping his backpack, pulling out the peanut butter sandwich she'd made him for after their shopping trip. His favorite, with the crust cut off just how he liked, wrapped in the dinosaur paper he'd picked out himself. "Here," Marcus said softly, breaking off a piece. He didn't throw it. Instead, he placed it on the ground between them and scooted back, waiting. "It's good. Grandma makes the best sandwiches." The dog stared at the bread like it might be a trap. Its whole body shook, from hunger, from fear, from something deeper that Helen recognized from her years as a hospice nurse. This was a creature that had given up, that was going through motions of survival without believing in them anymore. "Please eat it," Marcus said, and his voice cracked with tears he was trying not to shed. "It's not old. It's not bad, I promise." The German Shepherd took 1 tentative step forward, then another. Its legs barely held its weight. When it finally reached the sandwich piece, it sniffed once, twice, then grabbed it so fast Helen barely saw the movement. The dog retreated immediately, but not as far. It chewed slowly, as if remembering what real food tasted like. Marcus broke off another piece, larger this time. "What's your name?" he asked conversationally, as if they were meeting at a park instead of behind a derelict restaurant. "I'm Marcus. That's my grandma Helen. We live on Maple Street, the blue house with the broken mailbox Mom keeps saying she'll fix." The dog approached faster this time, taking the food from where Marcus placed it. On the 3rd piece, it came close enough that Marcus could have touched it, though he kept his hands carefully still. "Grandma," Marcus said without looking away from the dog, "he's wearing a collar. That means someone loved him once, right?" Helen's throat tightened. "Yes, baby. Someone loved him once." "Then why is he here?" The question hung in the morning air. heavy with accusation against a world that could allow such abandonment. The German Shepherd finished the sandwich and sat down heavily, as if the effort of eating had exhausted it. It looked at Marcus with those amber eyes, and something passed between boy and dog. Recognition of kindred spirits, perhaps, or just the simple acknowledgement of one broken thing to another. Marcus had been 3 when his father died in Afghanistan. He didn't remember much, just fragments, a laugh, the scent of aftershave, strong arms lifting him high. But he remembered the aftermath, the way his mother's eyes went dead for months, the way she still sometimes forgot to smile. He knew what it looked like when someone was left behind. "We can't leave him," Marcus said with quiet finality. Helen knew they couldn't take the dog. They lived in a rental that didn't allow pets. Lisa worked 14-hour days between the hospital and the diner just to keep them afloat. They could barely afford groceries, let alone vet bills for a sick animal. But looking at her grandson's face, at the set of his small jaw that reminded her so painfully of her late son, she knew logic had already lost this battle. "Marcus, honey, we can't—" "His leg is hurt," Marcus interrupted, pointing to the infected wound. "And he's so skinny. Feel his ribs. No, wait, don't scare him. But look, Grandma, look how skinny." The German Shepherd had laid down, its head resting on its paws, watching them with exhausted wariness. Helen could see its breathing was labored, each inhale an effort. This wasn't just starvation. This dog was sick, maybe dying. "We need to get help," she heard herself saying. "Dr. Carter at the veterinary clinic." "He's only 4 blocks away." Marcus jumped up, energy coursing through him. "We can take him there." Helen looked at the dog, easily 70 pounds even in its emaciated state. "Sweetheart, he can't walk that far." "Look at his leg." Marcus's face fell for a moment, then brightened. "My wagon!" "The one you pull for groceries. It's at home, just around the corner." Before Helen could respond, Marcus was running, his backpack bouncing against his shoulders. "Stay with him, Grandma. Don't let him leave. I'll be right back." And then he was gone, leaving Helen alone with the German Shepherd in the shadow of the abandoned restaurant. The dog lifted its head slightly, looking in the direction Marcus had run, then at Helen. "He's coming back," Helen found herself saying. "That boy doesn't know how to break a promise." The dog's tail moved, not quite a wag, just a single, tentative movement that might have been involuntary. But Helen, who had sat with enough dying patience to know the difference between giving up and holding on, recognized it for what it was, the first flicker of hope. She lowered herself carefully onto a relatively clean patch of concrete, her knees protesting. The German Shepherd watched her, but didn't move away. They sat in companionable silence, 2 old souls waiting for a 5-year-old's return. "You know," Helen said conversationally, "that boy's had a rough time too. His daddy died 2 years ago. His mama works herself to the bone trying to keep them afloat. Some days, I think Marcus is the one holding us all together, little as he is." The dog's ears twitched, angling toward her voice. "He's got something special, that boy. Sees hurt and wants to fix it. Gets that from his daddy." Helen's voice caught. "Michael was like that too. Couldn't pass by someone in need. It's what got him killed, trying to save his squad member. But it's also what made him worth loving." The German Shepherd made a sound, not quite a whine, more like a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of its own losses. Helen wondered what its story was, how it had ended up here, crying over spoiled food behind an abandoned restaurant. The collar suggested a past, a home, someone who had cared enough to identify their pet. But the deliberate scratches over the nameplate, the systematic erasure of identity, that suggested something darker. Not simple abandonment, but intentional disposal, like throwing away a broken appliance instead of fixing it. "People can be cruel," Helen murmured, and the dog's eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her wonder how much it understood. "But they can surprise you too. That boy coming back for you, he means it. If Marcus says he'll help, he'll move heaven and earth to do it. 5 years old and stubborn as his grandpa ever was." The sound of wheels on asphalt announced Marcus's return before he came into view. He was running full tilt, pulling his red radio flyer wagon behind him, the one Helen used for bringing groceries home when her arthritis made carrying bags impossible. His face was flushed with exertion and determination. "I brought blankets too," he announced breathlessly, skidding to a stop. "The soft one from my bed. And water." He held up a plastic bottle. and Mom's first aid kit, but I don't know how to use it. The German Shepherd had struggled to its feet at Marcus's return, tail attempting another weak movement. Marcus approached slowly this time, pulling the wagon close. "We're going to help you," he said solemnly to the dog. "Dr. Carter is really nice. He fixed Mrs. Johnson's cat when it got hit by a car. He'll fix your leg and make you better." Helen watched as Marcus spread the blanket in the wagon. His favorite one, she noticed, with the solar system pattern he'd picked out himself last Christmas. He arranged it carefully, making a nest. "Can you get in?" Marcus asked the dog. "I know it hurts to move, but the wagon has wheels so you won't have to walk." The German Shepherd looked at the wagon, then at Marcus, then at Helen. The intelligence in those amber eyes was unmistakable. This was a dog weighing options, making decisions, choosing trust over fear. It took 3 attempts. The first time, the dog's injured leg gave out. The second, it got halfway before retreating. But on the third try, with Marcus holding the wagon steady and making encouraging sounds, the German Shepherd managed to climb in. It barely fit, legs hanging over the edges, but it settled into the blanket with a sound that might have been relief. "See?" Marcus said, tears finally spilling over now that the dog was safe in the wagon. "I told you we'd help." Helen stood, her joints protesting, and looked at the picture they made, her tiny grandson preparing to pull a wagon with a dog that weighed more than he did. "Let me help pull, sweetheart." Together, grandmother and grandson began the slow journey to the veterinary clinic. The wagon wheels squeaked with each rotation. The German Shepherd lay still, only its eyes moving, tracking their surroundings with a vigilance that spoke of hard-learned wariness. They'd made it half a block when Mrs. Patterson emerged from her house, her perpetually pursed lips tightening further at the sight. "Helen Crawford, what on earth are you doing?" "Taking a sick dog to the vet," Helen replied evenly, not slowing their pace. "That's not your dog. That's a stray. It could have rabies, diseases, and you're letting your grandson near it?" Marcus's chin jutted out. "He's not a stray. He has a collar. Someone threw him away, and that's worse than being a stray." Mrs. Patterson's eyes narrowed. "Your mother know about this?" "We're doing the right thing," Helen said firmly, pulling the wagon past the disapproving woman. "Sometimes that's all that matters." But Mrs. Patterson's words had planted a seed of worry. Lisa would be upset. She had enough stress without adding a sick dog to the mix. And the vet bills. Helen's Social Security check was already stretched thin, helping with groceries and Marcus's school supplies. They passed 3 more houses before Mr. Rodriguez emerged from his garage. Unlike Mrs. Patterson, his face creased with concern rather than disapproval. "That dog looks pretty sick," he said, approaching slowly. "You need help?" "We're taking him to Dr. Carter," Marcus announced. "He's hurt and hungry, and someone left him behind the old restaurant." Mr. Rodriguez knelt beside the wagon, his weathered hands gentle as he examined the German Shepherd without touching. "Military working dog," he said quietly. "See the way he holds himself, even sick as he is? The alertness. I saw plenty of these in Vietnam. K9 units." Helen felt something cold settle in her stomach. A military dog, abandoned? That seemed particularly cruel, a betrayal of service and loyalty that went beyond simple neglect. "Why would someone throw away a military dog?" Marcus asked, voicing Helen's thoughts. Mr. Rodriguez's face darkened. "Sometimes handlers die. Sometimes dogs get too old or sick for service. Sometimes—" He trailed off, looking at Marcus's innocent face. "Sometimes people just fail to do right by those who served." The German Shepherd's eyes had fixed on Mr. Rodriguez during this exchange, and now it lifted its head slightly, nostrils flaring as if catching a familiar scent. Gun oil, perhaps, or just the ineffable smell of someone who'd seen combat. "You were a soldier?" Marcus said to the dog, with the certainty children possessed about important things. "Like my daddy was." The dog's tail moved again, stronger this time. Not quite a wag, but acknowledgement. Mr. Rodriguez stood. "I'll walk with you to the clinic. Make sure you get there safe." The small procession continued down Maple Street. An old woman, a small boy, a dying dog, and a Vietnam veteran, united in the simple act of refusing to look away from suffering. Dr. James Carter's veterinary clinic sat on the corner of Maple and 3rd, A converted house painted cheerful yellow with a sign featuring a smiling cartoon dog and cat. The parking lot held only 2 cars, Dr. Carter's ancient Honda and the receptionist's minivan. The bell chimed as Helen pushed open the door. Sarah, the receptionist, looked up from her computer, her welcoming smile faltering as she took in their group. "We need Dr. Carter," Helen said without preamble. "Emergency." Sarah was already moving, calling back to the treatment rooms. "Doc, we've got an emergency." Dr. Carter emerged quickly, a tall, thin man in his 50s with gentle hands and tired eyes. Those eyes widened as he took in the German Shepherd in the wagon. "Bring him straight back," he said, already moving to clear a path. "Treatment room 2. Marcus insisted on pulling the wagon himself down the hallway, though Helen could see his small arms shaking with the effort. The German Shepherd remained still, but its breathing had grown more labored, each inhale a whistle through too dry throat. In the treatment room, Dr. Carter and his veterinary technician, a young woman named Amy, carefully lifted the dog onto the examination table. The German Shepherd didn't resist, too exhausted or too resigned to fight. "How long has he been like this?" Dr. Carter asked, his hands already moving over the dog, checking vital signs. "We found him 20 minutes ago," Helen said, "behind the old Rosarios. He was trying to eat spoiled food." Dr. Carter's jaw tightened. "Severe dehydration, malnutrition. This infection on the leg is septic, probably why he was dumped. Temperature's 104. He needs IV fluids immediately." "Will he be okay?" Marcus asked, his voice small. Dr. Carter looked at the boy, and Helen saw him weighing how much truth a 5-year-old could handle. "He's very sick, but we're going to do everything we can." "How much?" Helen asked quietly, hating herself for having to ask, but knowing she had to. Dr. Carter was already inserting an IV line into the dog's front leg. "Let's focus on stabilizing him first. We can discuss payment options later." But Helen heard what he wasn't saying. This would be expensive, maybe impossibly expensive for a family already living paycheck to paycheck. "I have $17, Marcus announced suddenly, pulling crumpled bills from his pocket. "From my birthday. And the tooth fairy, he can have it." Dr. Carter's professional composure cracked slightly. "That's very generous, Marcus. Let's see what we can do first, okay?" As Amy shaved the area around the infected wound, preparing to clean it, something caught Dr. Carter's attention. He leaned closer, examining the dog's neck. "These are tags," he said slowly. "Military tags. But they've been filed down, made illegible." He looked up at Helen. "Someone went to a lot of trouble to erase this dog's identity." Mr. Rodriguez, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. "Doc, can you make out anything? Unit number, handler name, anything?" Dr. Carter retrieved a magnifying glass, studying the destroyed tags. "There's a partial serial number, starts with K9SF. That's Special Forces K9 unit. This isn't just a military dog, this is elite training." The room fell silent, except for the steady drip of the IV and the German Shepherds. Labored breathing, Marcus broke the quiet. "What's Special Forces?" "The best of the best, mister," Rodriguez said softly. "These dogs go on the most dangerous missions, save lives. Some are worth more than a house with all their training." "Then why?" Marcus's question hung in the air, unanswerable. The German Shepherd's eyes had been closed, but now they opened, fixing on Marcus with an intensity that made everyone in the room pause. Slowly, painfully, the dog lifted its head and looked directly at the boy. Its tail moved, not the weak twitch from before, but an actual wag, just once, but deliberate. "He knows you saved him, Doctor," Carter said quietly. "Dogs don't forget kindness." "I didn't save him yet," Marcus replied with 5-year-old honesty. "He's still sick." Dr. Carter returned to his examination. "The good news is that despite everything, his heart is strong. Military dogs are bred for resilience, but this infection needs aggressive treatment, antibiotics, possibly surgery to debride the wound. He'll need to stay here for observation, probably several days." Helen's heart sank. Several days of veterinary care, surgery, medications. They might as well ask for the moon. "I'll cover it," Mr. Rodriguez said suddenly. Everyone turned to stare at him. "I'll cover the initial treatment," he clarified. Had a dog save my life in Nam. Can't save them all, but I can save this one. Helen felt tears prick her eyes. Robert, we can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm offering. His tone brooked no argument. Doc, you do whatever needs doing. I'll handle the bill. Marcus threw his arms around Mr. Rodriguez's waist, barely reaching halfway. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Thank you. The older man looked uncomfortable with the emotion, but patted Marcus's head awkwardly. Just doing what's right, son. Dr. Carter nodded. I'll start treatment immediately. Amy, let's get blood work, start antibiotics, and prep for wound debridement. This boy's got a fight ahead of him. Can I stay? Marcus asked. Marcus, honey, we need to let Dr. Carter work, Helen said gently. Actually, Dr. Carter said, if he wants to sit with the dog for a few minutes while we get supplies ready, it might help. Sometimes a familiar face keeps them calmer. Marcus carefully approached the examination table where the German Shepherd lay, connected to the IV. The dog's eyes tracked his movement. You're going to be okay, Marcus said, with the absolute certainty that only children possess. Dr. Carter is going to fix your leg and make you better. And then, he paused, looking at his grandmother, then we'll figure out what happens next. The German Shepherd's eyes closed, but its tail moved once more. Trust, Helen thought. After everything, this dog was choosing to trust again. Amy returned with supplies and doctor. Carter began cleaning the infected wound. The smell was awful. Rot and infection that made Helen's stomach turn. The German Shepherd whimpered once, but didn't. Struggle. As if it understood this pain was different from what came before, that this pain had purpose. The infection is deep, doctor, Carter murmured, mostly to himself. But not in the bone. That's good. With aggressive treatment, we can save the leg. What's his name? Marcus asked suddenly. We can't keep calling him the dog. Everyone looked at the German Shepherd as if he might provide an answer. The destroyed tags and scratched collar nameplate had erased whatever identity he'd had before. Scout, Marcus said decisively. His name is Scout, like in the book Mom reads me, who watches out for everyone. The German Shepherd's ears perked at the name. Maybe it was similar to his real name, or maybe he just recognized the tone of someone claiming him, giving him identity again after someone had tried so hard to erase it. Scout it is, Doctor. Carter agreed, making a note in the chart. Approximate age based on teeth, 5 to 6 years. German Shepherd, male, intact. Severe malnutrition, dehydration, septic wound to right rear leg. Helen's phone buzzed. Lisa, calling from her break at the hospital. Mom, where are you? Mrs. Patterson called me. Something about a diseased stray dog? Helen stepped into the hallway, already dreading this conversation. Lisa, honey, let me explain. Mom, we cannot have a dog. You know we can't. We can barely afford... I know, Helen interrupted. But you should have seen Marcus, Lisa. The way he looked at this dog, the way the dog looked at him. Mr. Rodriguez is covering the vet bills. That's not the point. Lisa's voice was strained with exhaustion and stress. We can't keep it. The landlord will evict us. I'm working double shifts as it is. Who's going to take care of a dog? Through the door's window, Helen could see Marcus holding Scout's paw while Doctor Carter worked, talking to the dog in a steady stream of 5-year-old chatter about school and his friends and how his mom made the best spaghetti. Maybe we're not keeping him, Helen said carefully. Maybe we're just helping him get better. Then we can find him a proper home. Lisa's sigh carried through the phone. Mom, you know Marcus won't let that dog go now. You know how he gets attached. Helen did know. Marcus still slept with the teddy bear his father had given him, still set a place for Michael at holiday dinners, still talked to his father's photograph every night before bed. Marcus loved with his whole heart, and that heart had already claimed Scout. Let's just get through today, Helen said. The dog, Scout, might not even survive. He's very sick. Scout? You named him? Marcus named him. Another sigh. I'll be home at 7. We'll talk then. But Mom, we cannot keep a dog. We simply cannot. After Helen hung up, she stood in the hallway for a moment, watching through the window. Dr. Carter had finished cleaning the wound and was wrapping it in clean white bandages. Scout's eyes were closed, but his breathing seemed easier. The fourth dripped steadily, replacing fluids his body desperately needed. Marcus was still talking, telling Scout about his teacher, Mrs. Chen, and how she let him feed the class goldfish, and how he was learning to read chapter books all by himself. His small hand rested on Scout's head, gentle and protective. When Helen returned to the room, Carter was disposing of soiled bandages. The amount of infected material he'd removed was sobering. "He's stable for now," the vet announced. "The next 24 hours are critical. If he makes it through tonight, his chances improve significantly." "Can I visit him?" Marcus asked immediately. "Of course. In fact, I encourage it. The will to live matters as much as medicine sometimes, and this dog clearly responds to you." Mr. Rodriguez had been quiet in the corner, but now he spoke up. "Doc, I want to know who this dog belonged to. Those tags, that training, someone will be looking for him." Dr. Carter shook his head. "With the tags destroyed and no microchip that I can find, identifying the owner will be nearly impossible." "No microchip?" Mr. Rodriguez frowned. "Military dogs are always chipped." "That's what I thought too." Dr. Carter showed them the handheld scanner. "But nothing. Either it was removed or—" He trailed off. "Or what?" Helen asked. "Or this dog was part of something so classified that standard protocols didn't apply." The room fell silent again. Scout opened his eyes, looking directly at Marcus, then at each person in turn, as if memorizing their faces. "Whatever he was before," Marcus said with 5-year-old wisdom, "he's Scout now, and he's going to get better." As if in agreement, Scout's tail thumped once against the examination table. Outside, clouds gathered, promising rain. But inside the small veterinary clinic, hope flickered as fragile and determined as the dog fighting for his life. The walk home was quiet, Marcus dragging the empty wagon behind him, the blanket carefully folded inside. Helen could see the wheels turning in his small head, planning and plotting how to convince his mother to keep Scout. "Grandma," he said finally, "Scout is brave, isn't he? Even when he's hurt and scared, he's brave." "Yes, baby, he's very brave. Like Daddy was brave." Helen's throat tightened. "Yes, like your daddy. Then we have to save him. We have to." The determination in Marcus's voice was absolute. Brave things shouldn't be thrown away. They turned onto their street, the blue house with the broken mailbox coming into view. Such a small, ordinary house, already stretched to capacity with 3 people's worth of life and loss. How could they possibly add a dog, especially one with Scout's needs? But Helen thought about the way Scout had looked at Marcus, the way Marcus had looked at Scout, and wondered if perhaps the question wasn't whether they could afford to keep him, but whether they could afford not to. Some things she'd learned in her 72 years were worth more than money, and a boy who'd lost his father finding something to save, something that needed him as much as he needed it. That might be worth everything. "We'll see," she told Marcus, though she knew those words were just delaying the inevitable. Once Marcus loved something, he never let go. It was his gift and his curse, inherited from a father who died trying to save others. Inside the house, Marcus went straight to his room and returned with his tablet, the educational one Lisa had saved for months to buy. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" "Research," Marcus said seriously, "about German shepherds and military dogs and how to take care of them. If I know everything, Mom will see we can do it." Helen watched him tap away with surprising proficiency for a 5-year-old, his face scrunched in concentration. On the screen, images of German shepherds appeared, healthy, strong dogs in military gear, working alongside soldiers, saving lives. "Look, Grandma," Marcus said, showing her a picture. "This dog found bombs and saved a whole unit, and this one pulled his handler to safety when he got shot. They're heroes." "Yes, they are. Scout's a hero too. We just don't know his story yet." The front door opened and Lisa entered, still in her hospital scrubs, exhaustion written in every line of her body. She looked at Marcus with his tablet, at Helen sitting beside him, and sighed. "Show me," she said simply. Marcus's face lit up. He pulled his mother to the couch, tablet in hand, and began his presentation with the seriousness of a tiny professor. "This is Scout," he began, showing her a photo Helen hadn't realized he'd taken. Scout on the examination table, bandaged and connected to the IV, but with his eyes open, looking directly at the camera. "He's approximately 5 to 6 years old. He's a German shepherd who was in special forces, which means he's very smart and very well trained. Lisa's eyebrows rose at the military connection, but she didn't interrupt. He was abandoned behind Rosario's. Someone scratched off his name and tried to make him nobody, but he's not nobody. He's Scout. Mr. Rodriguez says he's worth more than a house because of his training, but someone threw him away anyway when he got sick. Marcus, Lisa started, but he pressed on. I know we don't have a lot of money. I know you work really hard. I know the landlord doesn't like dogs, but Scout needs us. And maybe, his voice got smaller, maybe we need him too. Lisa looked at Helen over Marcus's head. Mom? He was crying, Helen said simply. The dog was actually crying, trying to eat spoiled food. And when Marcus gave him his sandwich, he was so gentle. Even sick and starving, he was gentle. Lisa rubbed her face with both hands. The landlord will evict us. Mr. Mills owns the building, Helen said quietly. Mrs. Patterson manages it, but Robert Mills owns it. Lisa's head snapped up. Mr. Rodriguez's friend? The one who covered the vet bills? Helen nodded. Mom says brave things shouldn't be thrown away, Marcus added, pressing his advantage. Scout was brave for his country. Doesn't he deserve a family? Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Then, what did Dr. Carter say about his chances? 50-50, Helen admitted. The next 24 hours are critical. So he might not even survive. He will, Marcus said with absolute certainty. He has to. I promised him. Lisa looked at her son, this small boy who'd already lost so much, who was asking to love something that might leave him too. She saw Michael in his face, that same stubborn compassion that had made her fall in love with his father, that had ultimately taken his father away. We can't make any decisions until we know if he'll recover, she said finally. That's all I'm saying for now. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. Marcus threw his arms around his mother's neck, and Helen saw Lisa's eyes close, saw her breathe in the scent of her son's hair, saw her hold him like she was trying to protect him from all the world's disappointments. The phone rang, startling them all. Helen answered. Mrs. Crawford? This is Amy from the veterinary clinic. Dr. Carter wanted me to call. Scout, the German shepherd. He's taken a turn. Helen's heart dropped. What kind of turn? You should come. Bring Marcus. The walk back to the clinic felt endless. Marcus held both his mother's and grandmother's hands, his small fingers squeezing tight. Lisa had changed out of her scrubs into jeans and a sweater, her face set in the neutral expression she wore when bracing for bad news. The clinic was officially closed, but Dr. Carter met them at the door, his expression unreadable. What happened? Lisa asked immediately. Come see for yourselves. They followed him to the recovery area, where Scout lay in a large kennel, still connected to the IV. But something was different. His eyes were bright, alert. His tail wagged weakly when he saw Marcus. His fever broke, Doctor, Carter explained, unable to hide his smile. Suddenly, completely. His vitals stabilized. I've seen military dogs before, and they're fighters, but this was remarkable. Marcus dropped to his knees beside the kennel. I knew you'd be okay. I knew it. Scout's tail wagged harder, and he attempted to lift his head. Easy, boy, Doctor, Carter said gently. He needs to rest, but he wanted to see you. Wouldn't settle until you came. How did you know? Lisa asked. Dr. Carter looked slightly embarrassed. He kept looking at the door and whining. Amy suggested he might be looking for Marcus. We've seen it before. Animals who bond with someone during trauma. That connection can be stronger than medicine. Lisa knelt beside her son, looking at Scout properly for the first time. The dog looked back, and something passed between them, an understanding perhaps of what it meant to survive when everything seemed lost. He's got a long recovery ahead, Doctor, Carter warned. Weeks of antibiotics, wound, care, gradual rehabilitation. And he'll need to gain weight slowly. His system can't handle too much food at once after starvation. But he'll live? Marcus asked. Barring complications, yes, he'll live. Marcus turned to his mother, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Mom? Lisa looked at Scout, at her son, at her mother-in-law. She thought about their cramped house, their tight budget, their demanding schedules. Then she thought about the empty place at their dinner table, the silence where laughter used to be, the way Marcus still looked for his father in crowds. "We'll foster him," she said quietly, "just until he's better. Then we'll find him a proper home with people who can give him what he needs." Marcus nodded solemnly, but Helen saw the small smile playing at his lips. He knew, as Helen knew, that Scout had already found his home. "There's one more thing, Doctor," Carter said, leading them to his office. On his desk was a computer showing what looked like a database. "I did some research on that partial serial number, K9SF-4 ... He turned the screen toward them. It showed a military record, partially redacted, but with one clear photograph. Scout, younger and stronger, in full military gear standing next to a soldier whose face was blacked out. "His name was Echo, Doctor," Carter read. "Served 3 tours in Afghanistan, credited with saving 17 lives through IED detection. His handler was Sergeant Daniel Torres, killed in action 6 months ago." The room fell silent. Lisa reached for the photograph, studying it. 6 months, she said quietly. "Scout, Echo, has been on his own for 6 months? The record shows he was supposed to be transferred to another handler, but there's no follow-up. He disappeared from the system." "Someone took him," Helen said with sudden certainty. "Someone was supposed to care for him, and instead—" "They threw him away when he got sick," Marcus finished, his young voice hard with anger. "That's not fair." "That's not right." "No," Lisa agreed, pulling her son close. "It's not right. But we're going to make it right, aren't we?" Marcus nodded against her shoulder. "We're going to give him the best home, the best food, the best everything." "Within reason," Lisa said. But she was smiling now, the first real smile Helen had seen from her in months. Dr. Carter cleared his throat. "There's a program for retired military dogs, medical assistance, food subsidies. If we can prove Echo's service record, you might qualify for help with his care." "Really?" Lisa's face brightened with hope. "I'll help with the paperwork, Doctor," Carter offered. "Dogs like Echo, they've given everything for our country. The least we can do is make sure they're cared for." As they prepared to leave, promising to return first thing in the morning, Marcus pressed his face against the kennel one last time. "Tomorrow, Scout," he whispered. "Tomorrow you come home." Scout, Echo, whoever he was now, thumped his tail in. Agreement. His eyes, those amber eyes that had held such sorrow that morning, now held something else. Hope, perhaps. Or just the simple recognition that he'd been found by people who wouldn't let him go. Walking home under the streetlights, Lisa held Marcus's hand while Helen walked beside them. The night was cool, autumn creeping in with its promise of change. "Dad would have liked Scout," Marcus said suddenly. Lisa's step faltered for a moment. "Yes," she said softly. "He would have loved him. Maybe Dad sent him to us. You know, to watch over us since he can't." Lisa and Helen exchanged glances over Marcus's head. "Maybe he did, baby," Lisa said. "Maybe he did." They reached their small blue house with its broken mailbox, and for the first time in 2 years, it didn't feel quite so empty. Tomorrow, they would bring home a dog who'd lost everything and somehow survived. A dog who'd been thrown away but refused to give up. A dog who'd found a 5-year-old boy behind an abandoned restaurant and decided to trust one more time. The next morning came gray and drizzly, the kind of rain that seemed to seep into everything. Marcus was up before dawn, already dressed and sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook. "What are you writing?" Helen asked, starting the coffee. "A schedule," Marcus said seriously. "For Scout's medicine and walks and food. Dr. Carter said, routine is important for recovery." Lisa emerged from her bedroom in her diner uniform, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. "I can't get the morning off." "I'm sorry, baby, but I'll be home by 2. "That's okay," Marcus said, though his disappointment was clear. "Grandma and I can bring Scout home." "About that," Lisa said, sitting down with her coffee. "I talked to Mr. Rodriguez last night. He's the actual owner of our building. Mrs. Patterson just manages it." Helen's eyebrows rose. "And he's already approved Scout living here, said any dog that served our country is welcome in his properties." Lisa shook her head in amazement. "He also said he'd help with food and supplies until we get the military assistance sorted out." Marcus jumped up, his notebook forgotten. "Really? Scout can really stay?" "He can really stay," Lisa confirmed. "But Marcus, this is a big responsibility. Scout needs special care. He's been through trauma. He might have behaviors we don't expect. I know, Marcus said solemnly. I researched it. Sometimes military dogs have nightmares or get scared of loud noises. Sometimes they're protective. But that's okay. I have nightmares too sometimes. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away. Okay then, bring our dog home. The word our hung in the air, official and final. Scout wasn't just Marcus's dog or a foster. He was theirs. At the clinic, doctor, Carter was waiting with good news. He ate breakfast, just a small amount of special food, but he kept it down. His temperature is normal. The infection is responding to antibiotics. Scout was standing in his kennel when they arrived, still wobbly but upright. His tail began wagging the moment he saw Marcus. Hi, Scout, Marcus said, his whole face bright with joy. Ready to come home? Dr. Carter opened the kennel carefully. He needs to take it easy. Short walks, no stairs if you can avoid them. Here's his medication schedule and special food. He needs to eat small amounts 6 times a day until his system adjusts. Scout stepped out of the kennel slowly, favoring his injured leg. But his eyes were bright, alert, taking in everything. When Marcus held out his hand, Scout pressed his nose into the small palm. I'll need to see him every 3 days to check the wound and adjust medications, doctor, Carter continued. But I think home care will do him more good than staying here. Helen had brought the wagon again, lined with fresh blankets. But Scout, despite his weakness, seemed determined to walk. He made it to the door before his legs began shaking. It's okay to need help, Marcus told him, guiding him to the wagon. Everyone needs help sometimes. Scout settled into the wagon with a soft sigh, as if remembering yesterday's rescue. The rain had stopped, leaving everything fresh and clean-smelling. As they walked home, neighbors came out to look. Mrs. Patterson stood on her porch, lips pursed in disapproval, but said nothing. Her boss had already made his position clear. Other neighbors were more welcoming. Mrs. Chen from 2 houses down brought out a bag of dog treats. For when he's feeling better, she said, patting Marcus's head. Good boy, taking care of him. Takes one to know one, she added with a wink. Mr. Rodriguez was waiting at their house, sitting on the porch with a collection of supplies. A proper dog bed, bowls, a leash and collar, even toys. Every soldier needs proper gear, he said gruffly, clearly uncomfortable with their thanks. The bed's orthopedic, good for his joints while he recovers. They settled Scout in the living room, where he could see everything. Marcus had cleared a corner, arranging the bed where sunlight would hit it in the afternoon. Scout investigated slowly, sniffing everything, his training evident in the methodical way he checked each room, despite his exhaustion. He's making sure it's safe, Mr. Rodriguez observed. Military dogs are trained to clear spaces. He's protecting you already. Scout finally settled on his bed with a deep sigh, but his eyes remained open, watching. Marcus sat beside him with his notebook, reading aloud from his schedule. Medicine at noon, 2 and 8. Small meal every 4 hours. Gentle walk morning and evening. Wound check twice daily. He looked up at Scout. I'm going to take perfect care of you. Scout's tail thumped against the bed. Helen started preparing Scout's special meal, prescription food that looked unappetizing, but would be gentle on his damaged digestive system. Marcus insisted on being the one to give it to him. Small bites, he coached, holding. The bowl steady as Scout ate slowly, carefully. Dr. Carter said, your tummy needs to remember how to handle food. It was such a small thing, a dog eating from a bowl, but after seeing Scout crying over spoiled garbage, it felt momentous. This was what recovery looked like, small, ordinary moments building toward wholeness. Lisa called during her break. How's our patient? Eating, resting, and watching everything, Helen reported. Marcus hasn't left his side. I asked for tomorrow off, Lisa said. Figured we should have a family day, help Scout settle in properly. Family day. They hadn't had one of those since Michael died, but now, with Scout as an excuse, it seemed possible again. The afternoon passed quietly. Scout slept, his breathing deep and even. Marcus did his homework beside him, occasionally reaching out to stroke the soft fur behind Scout's ears. Helen cooked dinner, making extra for Lisa to heat up when she got home. Around 4 o'clock, Scout suddenly lifted his head, ears pricked. A moment later, they heard a car door slam. Scout was on his feet, limping toward the door, tail wagging. How did he know? Marcus asked in wonder. The The door opened and Lisa entered, still in her diner uniform. Scout approached her slowly, respectfully, and sat at her feet, looking up with those amber eyes. "Hello, Scout," Lisa said softly, kneeling to his level. "Welcome home." Scout's tail wagged harder, and he leaned slightly against her, just enough to make contact. Lisa's hand found the soft spot behind his ears, and Scout's eyes closed in contentment. "He knows you're the mama," Marcus said matter-of-factly. "Military dogs understand family structure. I read about it." Lisa laughed, the sound rusty from disuse but genuine. "Is that so? And what does that make you?" "His boy," Marcus said proudly. "The one he protects most." As if to confirm this, Scout moved back to Marcus's side, settling beside him with a protective air despite his own weakness. That evening, as they ate dinner, Scout lay between Marcus and Lisa's chairs, his presence somehow making the empty fourth chair less noticeable. He didn't beg, didn't even look at their food, but his tail would thump whenever someone said his name. "We should write to Sergeant Torres's family," Lisa said suddenly. "Let them know Echo Scout is safe." "What if they want him back?" Marcus asked, fear creeping into his voice. "Then we'll deal with that if it happens," Lisa said gently. "But they deserve to know he's okay. It might give them comfort." Marcus nodded slowly, understanding in his young way that grief was complicated, that loving something sometimes meant being willing to let it go. That night, when it was time for bed, Scout struggled to his feet and followed Marcus to his room without being asked. He settled beside the boy's bed with a contented sigh. "Is it okay if he sleeps here?" Marcus asked his mother. Lisa looked at Scout, at her son, at the simple rightness of the scene. "Yes, baby? It's okay." She tucked Marcus in, kissed his forehead, and watched as his small hand dropped over the edge of the bed to rest on Scout's head. "Good night, Scout," Marcus whispered. "Tomorrow will be better. Every day will be better now." Scout's tail thumped once in agreement. Lisa stood in the doorway for a moment, watching boy and dog in the soft glow of the nightlight. For 2 years, she'd worried about Marcus, his quietness, his serious nature, the way he seemed to carry weight too heavy for his small shoulders. But looking at him now, his face peaceful, his hand on Scout's fur, she saw something she'd feared might be lost forever. Hope. Helen joined her in the hallway. "He's good for Marcus," the older woman said quietly. "Marcus is good for him too," Lisa replied. "They're healing each other." They stood there together, two women who'd learned that sometimes love comes back to you in unexpected forms, that sometimes what seems like another burden is actually a blessing, that sometimes a thrown-away dog and a lonely boy can save each other in ways that medicine and therapy never could. Outside, the rain had started again, gentle against the windows. But inside the small blue house with the broken mailbox, a family was mending, one shared moment at a time. And at the center of it all was Scout, a dog who'd lost everything and found it again in the love of a 5-year-old boy who refused to let him go. The morning after Scout's first night home arrived with unexpected drama. Marcus woke to find Scout standing rigidly by his bedroom window, a low growl rumbling in his chest. The fur along his spine stood straight up, and his amber eyes were fixed on something outside with an intensity that made Marcus's heart race. "Scout?" Marcus whispered, sitting up in his dinosaur pajamas. "What's wrong?" The German Shepherd didn't break his focus, but his tail moved slightly at Marcus's voice, acknowledging him while maintaining vigilance. Marcus crept to the window, peering out into the pre-dawn darkness. At first, he saw nothing unusual, just their small backyard with its patchy grass and the old swing set his dad had built. Then, movement caught his eye. A figure in dark clothing was moving along their back fence, pausing at the gate. "Grandma!" Marcus called, his voice high with fear. "Grandma! Someone's outside!" Helen appeared in the doorway within seconds, followed closely by Lisa, who'd been getting ready for her early shift. Scout positioned himself between Marcus and the window, his growl deepening. "Stay back," Lisa ordered, moving cautiously to look outside. The figure was gone, but the gate was swinging open. They always kept it latched. "Should we call the police?" Helen asked, her hand on Marcus's shoulder. Before Lisa could answer, Scout suddenly relaxed, his ears swiveling toward the front of the house. A moment later, they heard a knock at the front door. 3 quick, 2 slow, almost like a code. Scout's entire demeanor changed. His tail began wagging frantically, and he limped as fast as his injured leg would allow toward the front door, whining with what sounded like desperate hope. Lisa grabbed a baseball bat from the hall closet. "Stay here with Marcus," she told Helen, but Scout was already at the door, scratching at it, his whines becoming almost frantic. "Scout knows them," Marcus said with 5-year-old certainty. "Look at him. He's happy." Lisa peered through the peephole, then gasped. "There's a soldier out there, in uniform." She opened the door cautiously, bat still in hand. Standing on their porch was a young woman in military fatigues, her face drawn with exhaustion and emotion. The moment the door opened, Scout launched himself forward, nearly knocking the woman over despite his injuries. "Echo!" she cried, dropping to her knees as Scout covered her face with kisses, his whole body wiggling with joy. "Oh my God, Echo! I found you. I finally found you." The woman was crying now, her arms wrapped around Scout's neck, while he whined and licked her tears, his tail wagging so hard his whole back end moved with it. "Who are you?" Lisa asked, lowering the bat, but not letting go of it entirely. The woman looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. "Sergeant Maria Santos. I served with Danny Torres. Echo Danny was my fiancé." The words hung heavy in the morning air. Marcus had crept forward despite being told to stay back, his small hand finding Scout's fur. "You're Sergeant Torres's girlfriend?" he asked softly. Maria nodded, wiping her face with her sleeve. "We were supposed to get married when he came home. But he didn't come home. And Echo disappeared from the base before I could claim him. Someone took him," Helen said, her voice hard. "Someone was supposed to care for him and instead abandoned him when he got sick." Maria's face darkened with rage. "Lieutenant Morrison, Danny's CO. He said he'd take care of Echo until I got back from deployment. But when I returned last week, Morrison had been transferred and Echo was gone. I've been searching everywhere." Scout had settled between Maria and Marcus, his head swiveling between them as if torn between old loyalty and new love. Marcus's small fingers tightened in Scout's fur, and Lisa saw the fear in her son's eyes. Fear that Scout would be taken away just when they'd found each other. "Come inside," Lisa said quietly. "We need to talk." They gathered in the living room, Scout still positioned between Maria and Marcus. The soldier's eyes took in Scout's bandages, his thin frame, the careful way he held his injured leg. "What happened to him?" Maria asked, her voice breaking. Helen explained everything, finding Scout behind the restaurant, the infection, the destroyed tags, the vet bills that missed her. Rodriguez had covered. As she spoke, Maria's hands clenched into fists. "Morrison sold him," she said with sudden certainty. "That bastard sold him to someone who dumped him when the medical bills got too high. Danny would have..." She stopped, unable to continue. "Scout almost died," Marcus said quietly. "But we saved him. We brought him home." Maria looked at the 5-year-old boy, really seeing him for the first time. "You saved him?" Marcus nodded solemnly. "He was crying. Real tears. He was trying to eat garbage because he was so hungry. So I gave him my sandwich and told him everything would be okay." "And you've been taking care of him?" "We all have," Lisa interjected. "Marcus, my mother-in-law Helen, and me. Scout's become part of our family." The words hung in the air, a claim and a challenge. Maria's eyes moved around the room, taking in Scout's bed in the corner, his bowls in the kitchen, the medication schedule Marcus had written in careful crayon on poster board and taped to the wall. "You love him," she said, and it wasn't a question. "Marcus's father died 2 years ago," Helen said gently. "In Afghanistan. He was trying to save someone from his unit." Maria's head snapped up. "What was his name?" "Staff Sergeant Michael Matthews." Maria's face went pale. "Oh my God, Michael was..." Danny talked about him all the time, said he was the bravest man he'd ever served with. When Michael died, Danny was devastated. He said... She stopped, looking at Marcus with new eyes. "He said Michael talked about his son constantly, said he was raising a little hero." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "My daddy knew Sergeant Torres?" Maria nodded, pulling out her phone. She scrolled through photos until she found one. A group of soldiers, including Michael and Danny, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning at the camera. Scout, younger, stronger, sat at Danny's feet. "They were close," Maria said softly. Your dad was teaching Danny how to be a good father. We just found out I was pregnant." The room went silent. Lisa reached for the phone, staring at the image of her husband, alive and laughing with the man whose dog now lay in their living room. "You have a baby?" Marcus asked. Maria's hand went to her stomach. 6 months along, it's a boy. I was going to name him Daniel Michael, after his father and—" She looked at Marcus, "and after your father." Scout had been listening to all of this with those intelligent amber eyes. Now he moved, positioning himself so he could touch both Maria and Marcus, his body forming a bridge between them. "He knows," Helen said quietly. "Somehow, he knows the connection." Maria was crying again, silent tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. "Danny would have wanted this," she said finally. "If he knew Echo ended up with Michael's family, he would have said it was meant to be." "But he's your dog," Marcus said, though his voice was small and scared. "You came to take him back." Maria looked at Marcus, this small boy who'd saved Echo, who'd given him a new name and a new life. She saw the fear in his eyes, but also the resignation. He'd already lost his father, and he was prepared to lose Scout too, if that's what was right. "Actually," Maria said slowly, "I came to make sure he was safe. I've been terrified about what happened to him. But seeing him here, seeing how you've cared for him—" She stopped, visibly struggling with her decision. Scout whined softly, nudging her hand, then Marcus's, as if trying to bring them together. "I'm being stationed at Fort Campbell," Maria continued. "That's 3 hours from here. I'll be a single mom with a new baby in active duty service. I wanted Echo back because he's all I have left of Danny, but—" She looked around the room again. "But he has a family here. A boy who needs him. A connection to Michael that Danny would have honored. You could visit," Marcus said suddenly, hope creeping into his voice. "You could visit Scout whenever you want. And when your baby is born, he could meet Scout too. We could tell him stories about his daddy and my daddy." Lisa moved to sit beside her son, pulling him close. "Marcus is right. You're not losing Echo. Scout, you're gaining a connection to him, to us." Maria looked at Scout, who was watching her with those knowing eyes. "What do you think, Echo? Could you have 2 families?" Scout's tail thumped against the floor. He stood, moving to Maria first, licking her hand gently. Then he returned to Marcus's side, sitting pressed against the boy's leg in a position that clearly stated his choice while acknowledging his past. "He's where he needs to be," Maria said finally, her voice stronger. "But I have one request." "Anything?" Lisa said immediately. "Can I tell you about Danny? About who Echo was before? There are things you should know, things that might help." For the next 2 hours, as the sun rose fully and the day began, Maria told them about Staff Sergeant Daniel Torres and his remarkable dog. She told them about the lives Echo had saved, the bombs he'd detected, the night he'd dragged Danny to safety after an ambush. She explained his commands, his training, his quirks. "He's afraid of thunderstorms," she said. "Not the noise. He's trained for gunfire. But Danny died during a thunderstorm. Echo might panic during storms now." Marcus nodded solemnly, adding this to his mental list of Scout's care requirements. "And he knows over 40 commands, some in English, some in German. He's trained in protection, tracking, detection. But more than that, he's trained to read people. If he ever growls at someone, trust him. His instincts have saved more lives than we can count." "Is that why he was watching the backyard this morning?" Marcus asked. Maria frowned. "He alerted?" "To what?" Lisa explained about the figure by the fence. Maria's expression grew concerned. "Echo doesn't alert without reason. Someone was definitely there, and he perceived them as a threat." "But who would be watching our house?" Helen asked. Maria's face darkened. "Morrison. If he sold Echo illegally, he might be trying to cover his tracks. Or whoever he sold Echo to might want him back. A trained military dog is worth tens of thousands on the black market." Lisa's arm tightened around Marcus. "Are you saying we're in danger?" "I'm saying Echo will protect you," Maria replied firmly. "And I'm going to make some calls. Morrison needs to be investigated. What he did, abandoning a military asset, a hero dog. It's not just cruel, it's illegal." She stood, and Scout immediately got to his feet as well, alert to her movement. "Platz," she said softly in German. Scout immediately lay down, though his eyes remained on her. "He remembers," she said wonderingly. "Even after everything, he remembers." "He remembers love," Marcus said with 5-year-old wisdom. "That's the most important thing to remember." Maria knelt in front of Marcus, her expression serious. "You're right. And I need you to promise me something. Take care of him, but let him take care of you too. Echo, Scout, he needs a purpose. Protecting you, that's his purpose now. Don't try to stop him from doing his job." Marcus nodded solemnly. "I promise." Maria pulled a card from her pocket. "My number. Call me if anything happens, anything at all, and could you send me pictures sometimes of Echo being happy?" "Every week," Marcus promised immediately, "and you can send pictures of your baby when he's born." Maria hugged Marcus then, surprising everyone, including herself. "Danny would have loved you," she whispered, "just like he loved your dad." As Maria prepared to leave, Scout walked her to the door, his gait still stiff but determined. At the threshold, she knelt one more time, taking his face in her hands. "Beschützen," she said firmly in German. "Protect." Then, pointing at Marcus, "Beschützen Sie." Scout's entire demeanor shifted, becoming more alert, more focused. He moved back to Marcus's side with new purpose, his stance protective. "What did you tell him?" Lisa asked. "To protect Marcus. It's his official mission now." Maria stood, saluting Scout formally. The German shepherd sat straighter, his own version of returning the salute. After Maria left, the house felt different. The weight of Scout's history, his connection to both Michael and Danny, seemed to fill the space with unexpected meaning. "Dad sent him to us," Marcus said with absolute certainty. "Dad and Sergeant Torres together. They made sure Scout found us." Lisa wanted to provide a rational explanation, to temper her son's magical thinking with reality. But, looking at Scout, at the impossible chain of events that had brought him to their door, she found she couldn't. Maybe they did, baby. Maybe they did. The next few days passed in a routine that felt both new and somehow inevitable. Scout's strength returned gradually, his appetite improved, and the infection in his leg began to clear. But more than his physical recovery, it was his integration into their family that amazed everyone. He learned their schedules within days. He would wake Marcus gently each morning for school, nosing the boy's hand until he stirred. He positioned himself by the door exactly 3 minutes before Lisa came home from each shift, his internal clock somehow perfectly calibrated to her variable schedule. With Helen, he was gentle and attentive, walking slowly beside her when her arthritis was bad, staying close when she needed support. But it was at night that Scout's true nature showed itself. He would patrol the house, checking windows and doors with military precision. Several times, Marcus woke to find Scout standing alert by his window, watching something in the darkness that only he could see. On the 4th night after Maria's visit, the thunderstorm she'd warned them about arrived. The first crack of thunder sent Scout into a panic unlike anything they'd seen. He began pacing frantically, whining, trying to hide under furniture too small to accommodate him. His eyes were wild, unfocused, seeing something beyond the present moment. Marcus found him pressed into the corner of the bathroom, shaking violently. "Scout?" Marcus said softly. "It's okay. It's just a storm." But Scout didn't seem to hear him. He was lost in some memory, some trauma that the thunder had triggered. Marcus did the only thing he could think of. He sat down right there on the bathroom floor and began to sing. It was the same lullaby his mother sang to him during storms, the one his grandmother had sung to his father. "Hush now, don't you cry. Stars are watching from the sky." Scout's ears twitched toward Marcus's voice. His eyes began to focus, seeing the boy rather than whatever horror memory had conjured. "Close your eyes and go to sleep. Dreams are yours to have and keep." Gradually, Scout's shaking subsided. He crawled toward Marcus, all dignity forgotten, until his head was in the boy's lap. Marcus kept singing, his small hands stroking Scout's ears, until the storm passed and the dog's breathing returned to normal. Lisa found them there an hour later, both asleep on the bathroom floor. Scout had positioned himself around Marcus protectively, even in sleep, guarding the boy who'd guided him through his terror. The next morning brought a new crisis. Marcus woke to find Scout standing over him, not in his usual guardian pose, but swaying on his feet, His breathing labored. "Mom!" Marcus screamed, real fear in his voice. "Something's wrong with Scout." Lisa rushed in to find Scout collapsed beside Marcus's bed, his body convulsing. Foam tinged with blood frothed at his mouth. "Call Dr. Carter," Lisa ordered Helen while she checked Scout's vital signs. His heart was racing, his temperature spiking despite the antibiotics. Dr. Carter arrived within 15 minutes, his medical bag in hand. He'd given them his personal number after Scout's initial treatment, understanding the precarious nature of the dog's recovery. "Poison," he said after a quick examination. "Someone's poisoned him." "What?" Lisa gasped. "How?" "Doctor." Carter was already administering medications, working with practiced efficiency. "When did he last eat?" "Last night," Marcus said through tears. "His regular food. I gave it to him myself." "Any chance he got into something outside?" Helen's face went pale. "I let him out for bathroom breaks in the backyard, but only for a few minutes." Dr. Carter induced vomiting, and what came up confirmed his suspicions. Chunks of meat that weren't part of Scout's prescribed diet. "Someone threw poison bait into your yard," he said grimly. "This is deliberate." While Dr. Carter worked to save Scout, Lisa called the police. Then, remembering Maria's warning, she called the number on the card the soldier had left. Maria answered immediately. "What's wrong?" "Someone poisoned Scout." "Echo, someone tried to kill him." There was silence then. "I'm on my way." "And I'm bringing help." The next hours were a blur. Dr. Carter managed to stabilize Scout, though he warned the recovery would set back his healing significantly. The police found evidence of tainted meat thrown over their fence, professional-grade poison that suggested this wasn't random. Maria arrived 3 hours later, but she wasn't alone. With her were 2 men in civilian clothes who carried themselves with unmistakable military bearing. "This is Captain James Wilson and Sergeant First Class Alex Cooper," Maria introduced them. "They served with Danny and Michael. When I told them what was happening, they insisted on coming." Captain Wilson, a compact man with sharp eyes, surveyed the house with professional assessment. "Someone wants this dog dead badly enough to risk exposure. That means Echo knows something or has something they need." "But what?" Lisa asked, exhausted from the morning's terror. "During our last mission," Sergeant Cooper said, "Danny mentioned Echo had detected something unusual at a compound we raided. Not explosives, something else. Danny was killed before he could file the full report." "You think Echo witnessed something?" Helen asked. "I think Echo's trained nose detected something that certain people don't want discovered," Wilson replied. "Maria, you said Morrison sold him?" Maria nodded. "I'm certain of it." "Morrison was under investigation for missing supplies," Cooper added, "chemical weapons that disappeared from a secured facility. The investigation was dropped after Danny died. No evidence." "But Echo was the evidence," Lisa said, understanding dawning. "He could identify the chemical signature, which is why Morrison couldn't just have him put down officially," Wilson continued. "Too many questions? So he sold him to someone who'd make him disappear quietly." Marcus, who'd been silent through this exchange, suddenly spoke up. "Scout's sick. Can't you talk about this later?" The adults looked at the boy, his small face fierce with protective anger, and remembered what mattered most. "You're right," Wilson said gently. "First priority is Echo's recovery. We'll post-watch. Nobody gets near this house without us knowing." For the next 48 hours, the house became a makeshift military operation. Wilson and Cooper took shifts watching the perimeter. Maria helped care for Scout, whose poisoning had indeed set back his recovery significantly. He was weak, confused, sometimes not recognizing even Marcus. It was during one of these confused periods that Scout did something unexpected. He struggled to his feet and limped to Marcus's closet, pawing at something in the corner. Marcus found him trying to dig at the floorboards. "What is it, Scout?" Marcus asked, kneeling beside him. Scout continued pawing at one particular board until Marcus noticed it was slightly loose. With effort, the 5-year-old managed to pry it up, revealing a small space beneath. "Mom!" Marcus called. "I found something." Hidden beneath the floorboard was a small metal cylinder, military issue, with Danny's service number engraved on it. Wilson examined it carefully. "It's a data storage device, military encrypted." He looked at Scout with new respect. He knew it was here. Somehow Danny must have hidden it, and Echo remembered. "But this is our house. Lisa said, confused. Wait, Helen said suddenly. The Johnsons lived here before us. Mr. Johnson was in the National Guard. He knew Michael, maybe. Wilson was already working on the device with a small military laptop. It's encrypted, but there, got it. The screen filled with documents, photos, chemical formulas, evidence of Morrison's theft, his sale of chemical weapons to private buyers, names, dates, amounts. This is it, Cooper breathed. This is what Danny died for. He must have hidden it here during his last leave, knowing Morrison was on to him. And Echo knew where it was the whole time, Maria said wonderingly. Scout, despite his weakness, had positioned himself between Marcus and the adults, still protecting even as his body failed him. We need to get this to the proper authorities, Wilson said. This is evidence of treason. Will Scout be safe then? Marcus asked, his first concern always for his dog. Yes, Wilson said firmly. Once Morrison and his buyers are arrested, Echo won't be a target anymore. The next days moved quickly. Military police arrived to take custody of the evidence. Morrison was arrested at his new posting, and several of his co-conspirators were identified. The investigation revealed a network of corruption that Danny and Michael had been close to exposing before their deaths. Through it all, Scout slowly recovered. The poison had damaged his system, adding weeks to his recovery time. But with Marcus's devoted care and Dr. Carter's expertise, he gradually regained strength. A month after the poisoning attempt, Scout was finally well enough for his first real walk. Marcus held the leash proudly as they made their way down Maple Street. Scout's gait still slightly stiff, but determined. Mrs. Patterson watched from her porch, her usual disapproval replaced by something like respect. She'd heard about the poisoning, about Scout's military service, about the conspiracy he'd helped expose. That's a hero dog you've got there, she called out, the first kind word she'd ever offered. Yes, ma'am, Marcus replied politely. He's the best dog in the world. They walked to the small park at the end of the street, where Scout suddenly stopped, his nose lifting to catch a scent. His tail began wagging, and he pulled gently toward the playground. There, on a bench, sat Maria. Her belly was noticeably rounder now, 7 months pregnant. She stood as they approached, and Scout's joy was unmistakable. I wanted to see how he was doing, she said, kneeling carefully to embrace Scout. And to tell you the news. Morrison confessed to everything in exchange for a lighter sentence. He admitted to selling Echo to a dog fighting ring, telling them he was aggressive and needed to be put down. Lisa, who'd followed with Helen, gasped. Dog fighting? They dumped him when they realized he wouldn't fight, Maria continued. Even sick and starving, Echo wouldn't turn aggressive. It's not in his nature, not toward humans. He's good, Marcus said simply. Even when bad things happen to him, he stays good. Maria looked at the boy with eyes full of emotion. Danny would say that's the best kind of brave. They sat together in the park, watching Scout explore with careful curiosity. He never strayed far from Marcus, always checking back, always protecting. I've been thinking, Maria said suddenly, about what you said, about our babies knowing each other. I'd like that. I'd like my son to grow up knowing Marcus, knowing Echo's story. We'd like that too, Lisa said warmly. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's just people who choose to show up for each other. As if understanding he was being discussed, Scout returned to the group, sitting perfectly centered between Maria and Marcus, his two people, his two purposes. I have something for you, Maria said, pulling a small package from her bag. Inside was a medal, bronze with a purple ribbon. This is Danny's Purple Heart, she explained. He earned it the day he died, saving his unit. I want Marcus to have it. We can't, Lisa started, but Maria interrupted. Please, Danny would want it to go to Michael's son. And someday when my boy is old enough, Marcus can tell him about his father, about Michael, about Echo, about how heroes take care of each other, even after they're gone. Marcus accepted the medal with the solemnity it deserved, carefully examining it before looking up at Maria. I'll keep it safe. And I'll tell your baby all the stories. As they walked home, Scout between them, Marcus suddenly said, Mom, I want to do something. What's that, baby? I want to start a thing for dogs like Scout. Military dogs who get hurt or lost or thrown away, so they can find families who will love them. Lisa felt her throat tighten. That's a beautiful idea, Marcus. We could call it the Scout Foundation, he continued, his 5-year-old mind already planning. And we could tell people about what happened to Scout so they know these dogs are heroes and deserve good homes. Helen smiled. Your daddy would be so proud of you. Both daddies, Marcus corrected. Mine and Daniel Michael's daddy too. That evening, as Lisa tucked Marcus into bed with Scout in his usual guardian position, she found herself thinking about the strange path that had brought them here. A crying dog behind an abandoned restaurant had become the thread that connected military conspiracies, lost fathers, new friendships, and unexpected purpose. Mom, Marcus said sleepily, do you think things happen for a reason? Lisa looked at Scout, whose amber eyes were watching her with that uncanny intelligence. I think sometimes bad things happen, and we can choose to make something good from them. Like Scout, Marcus murmured, already drifting towards sleep. Something bad happened to him, but now he's making us all better. It was true, Lisa realized. In caring for Scout, they'd found purpose beyond their grief. Marcus had someone to protect and be protected by. Helen had a reason to take her daily walks, and Lisa herself had remembered what it felt like to be part of something larger than survival. 3 months later, the local news picked up Scout's story. Maria had contacted them, thinking publicity might help Marcus's idea for the Scout Foundation. The reporter, a young woman named Jennifer, arrived on a bright Saturday morning. Scout, now fully recovered, though bearing scars from his ordeal, sat regally beside Marcus as they told their story. Marcus, with the earnestness that only a 5-year-old could manage, explained how he'd found Scout and why military dogs deserve better. They're heroes, he said, looking directly at the camera. They save people and find bombs and protect soldiers. But sometimes, when they get hurt or their person dies, nobody takes care of them. That's not right. The reporter was visibly moved. What made you want to help Scout that first day? Marcus thought carefully. He was crying. Real tears. I never saw a dog cry before, and I thought, if he's crying, his heart must hurt as much as mine did when my daddy died. Nobody should hurt that much alone. The camera captured Scout leaning against Marcus, the boy's small hand resting on the dog's head. It was a simple image that would soon spread across social media, touching millions. Can you tell us about Scout's service? Jennifer asked. Lisa had prepared for this, having gotten permission from the military to share certain details. She explained Scout's, Echo's, service record, his handler's death, the abandonment and near death, the poisoning attempt, and the evidence he'd helped uncover. This dog helped expose a weapons trafficking ring, she said. Even abandoned and dying, he remembered his duty. He protected evidence that brought justice for his handler and my husband. The story aired that evening. Within hours, it had been picked up by national news outlets. The image of Marcus and Scout, the story of 2 war widows' children finding each other through a dog, resonated across the country. Donations began pouring in for the Scout Foundation before they'd even formally established it. Offers of help came from veterinarians, military organizations, and civilians touched by the story. But the most meaningful response came from an unexpected source. General Patricia Hayes, commander of the Military Working Dog Program, contacted them personally. I've been following Echo's story, she said during a video call. What happened to him is a failure of our system. We want to help establish the Scout Foundation as an official partner in rehoming retired military dogs. Marcus, sitting with Scout during the call, raised his hand like he was in school. General Hayes, can you make sure no more dogs get thrown away? The general's stern face softened. We're changing our protocols because of Echo, young man. Every retired military dog will now have mandatory tracking and welfare checks. We're calling it the Echo Protocol. Scout's tail thumped at the sound of his military name, and he sat a little straighter, as if understanding the honor being given. 6 weeks later, they held the first Scout Foundation event. It was supposed to be small, just a gathering in the local park to raise awareness, but the story had touched so many people that hundreds showed up. Veterans came with their retired military dogs. Families interested in adopting came to learn. Dr. Carter set up a booth offering free health checks for military dogs. Mr. Rodriguez, who'd become the foundation's first major donor, worked the donation table with military precision. But the moment that made every news outlet was when Maria arrived with her newborn son, Daniel Michael Torres. Scout recognized her immediately, his whole body wiggling with joy. But when he saw the baby, he became utterly still, moving forward with incredible gentleness to sniff the infant. "Echo," Maria said softly, "meet Daniel. Daniel, this is Echo. He loved your daddy very much." Scout, Echo, sat perfectly still as Maria lowered the baby for him to see. The dog's tail wagged slowly, and he leaned forward to lick the baby's tiny hand with infinite care. Marcus stood beside them, his hand on Scout's back. "He knows," the boy said with certainty. "Scout knows this is Sergeant Torres's baby." The photographer from the local paper captured the moment. A military dog, a 5-year-old boy, and an infant, connected by loss and love and the determination to make meaning from tragedy. The Scout Foundation grew from that day. Within a year, they'd helped rehome 30 retired military dogs. Marcus, despite being only 6 by then, became the foundation's youngest spokesperson, visiting schools to teach children about military dogs and their service. Scout went with him everywhere, still limping slightly from his old injuries, but carrying himself with dignity. He'd learned to work with Marcus in presentation mode, demonstrating basic commands, showing his gentle nature, proving that military dogs could be family dogs. One presentation particularly stood out. They were visiting a veterans hospital, and an old soldier in a wheelchair had been watching from the back, tears streaming down his face. "I had a dog like that in Vietnam," he said when Marcus approached. "Left him behind when I came home. Still think about him every day." Marcus, with wisdom beyond his years, took the man's weathered hand. "He knew you loved him. Dogs always know." Scout moved forward, resting his head on the veteran's knee, offering comfort for a loss 50 years old. The man broke down completely, and Marcus simply stood there, one hand on Scout, one on the veteran's shoulder, bridging past and present with the simple power of compassion. Dr. Carter, who'd become the Foundation's veterinary advisor, often marveled at the changes in Scout. "Medically, he shouldn't be as strong as he is," he told Lisa. "That poisoning alone should have left permanent damage, but it's like he has something driving him beyond physical healing." "He has Marcus," Lisa replied simply, "and Marcus has him. They keep each other going." It was true. On Marcus's bad days, when grief for his father hit unexpectedly, Scout would know before anyone else. He'd find Marcus wherever he was hiding and simply be there, a warm, steady presence that asked nothing but offered everything. On Scout's bad days, when his old injuries ached or thunderstorms triggered his trauma, Marcus would sit with him for hours, singing the lullaby that had become their song, stroking his fur, reminding him he was safe and loved. Helen, watching them together, often thought about the mysterious ways healing happened. 2 years ago, they'd been a family broken by loss, going through the motions of life without really living. Now, they had purpose, community, and a mission that honored both Michael and Danny's memories. The second anniversary of finding Scout arrived with unexpected news. Maria called early that morning, excitement in her voice. "Turn on Channel 6, she said. "Now." The morning show was doing a segment on everyday heroes. There, on national television, was the video Jennifer had shot 2 years ago, Marcus explaining why military dogs mattered, Scout leaning against him. "This little boy and his dog have now helped over 100 military dogs find homes," the host said. The Scout Foundation, started by 6-year-old Marcus Matthews, and his rescued military dog Scout, has become a national model for military dog adoption. But then the host said something that made them all gasp. "And this morning, we have a special announcement. The president will be awarding Scout, formerly Echo, the Medal of Valor for his service in exposing the weapons trafficking ring that cost several soldiers their lives, including his handler. It's the first time in history a military dog will receive this honor at a public ceremony." Marcus jumped up, screaming with joy. Scout, startled by the sudden movement, went into protection mode before realizing it was celebration, not danger. Then his tail began wagging as he absorbed the excitement around him. "Did you know?" Lisa asked Maria over the phone. "I nominated him," Maria admitted, with support from Wilson, Cooper, and General Hayes. "Echo deserves recognition for what he sacrificed, what he survived, and what he exposed." The ceremony was scheduled for the following month in Washington, D.C. The foundation received offers to cover all travel expenses, and Marcus was asked to speak at the ceremony. "What do I say?" Marcus asked nervously as the day approached. "Tell them the truth," Lisa advised. "Tell them about Scout. Tell them why these dogs matter." The morning of the ceremony, Scout seemed to understand something important was happening. He stood still as Marcus brushed his coat until it shone. He accepted the special collar with military insignia that Maria had sent. He even tolerated the bow tie Marcus insisted on adding. The ceremony was held in a grand auditorium filled with military officials, veterans, and families. Scout walked onto the stage with Marcus, his gait still showing that slight limp, but his bearing proud and alert. When it came time for Marcus to speak, he looked very small behind the podium, even with the step stool they'd provided. Scout stood beside him, and Marcus's hand found his fur for courage. "My name is Marcus Matthews," he began, his young voice clear and strong. "My daddy died in Afghanistan saving his friends. I was 3. I don't remember much about him, but I remember feeling really sad and empty after he was gone." The auditorium was completely silent. Then I found Scout. He was dying behind an old restaurant, crying real tears because someone threw him away after his handler died. My daddy's friend, Sergeant Torres, was Scout's person. They both died saving others. Marcus's voice wavered slightly, but Scout pressed closer, and the boy continued. "People think military dogs are just animals trained to do jobs. But they're not. They're heroes who love their handlers more than anything. They face danger and get hurt, and keep going because that's what love makes you do." He looked down at Scout, who was gazing up at him with those amber eyes. Scout was poisoned and shot and abandoned, but he still protected evidence that caught bad guys. He still protected me and my family. He still chose to trust and love again, even after people were so mean to him. Marcus's voice grew stronger. "Every military dog deserves what Scout found, a family who sees them as the hero they are. Not just because of their service, but because of their heart. Scout saved me as much as I saved him. He showed me that even when really bad things happen, love can make them better." He paused, looking out at the audience. "My daddy and Sergeant Torres can't come home, but Scout did. And every day he reminds us that heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they have 4 legs and fur and eyes that understand everything. Thank you for honoring Scout today. He deserves it. They all do." The auditorium erupted in applause. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Scout, sensing the emotion, pressed against Marcus protectively, his tail wagging slightly in acknowledgement of the appreciation. When the president placed the medal around Scout's neck, the German shepherd sat perfectly still, his bearing military perfect. But his eyes never left Marcus, his boy, his purpose, his family. The photo of that moment, a small boy, a scarred dog, and the highest honor a grateful nation could bestow, became iconic. It represented not just Scout's story, but the story of every military dog who'd served, suffered, and deserved better. After the ceremony, they were approached by a film producer, wanting to make a documentary about Scout and the foundation. Publishers wanted Marcus to write a children's book. Organizations wanted them to speak across the country. But Marcus had just one question. Can Scout handle all that? Dr. Carter examined Scout carefully when they returned home. He's 7 now, maybe 8. The poisoning and injuries aged him. He's got maybe 5 good years left, if we're careful. Then we'll be careful, Marcus said firmly. Scout only does what he wants to do. They agreed to the documentary, but insisted it be filmed at home, in Scout's comfortable environment. They accepted some speaking engagements, but only ones within driving distance. Marcus started writing his book with Lisa's help, but the proceeds would go entirely to the foundation. Through it all, Scout remained what he'd always been, Marcus's protector, the family's guardian, a bridge between past and present, loss and hope. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Marcus asked his mother, "Do you think Daddy knows about Scout?" Lisa looked at her son, taller now at 7, still small for his age, but carrying himself with a confidence born from purpose. "I think your daddy knows everything important." "I'm going to tell him anyway," Marcus decided. He looked up at the sky, now painted in shades of orange and pink. "Hey, Daddy. This is Scout. He was Sergeant Torres's dog, but now he's ours. He's teaching me how to be brave and help others, just like you did." Scout lifted his head, also looking at the sky, as if he too had someone to report to. "We're taking care of each other," Marcus continued, "and we're helping other dogs like Scout find families. I think you'd be proud." A gentle breeze stirred, rustling the leaves, and for a moment it felt like an answer, an acknowledgement, a blessing. Helen joined them on the porch, moving slowly but steadily. "Letter came today," she said, handing Marcus an envelope. It was from a family in Texas who had adopted a retired military dog through the Scout Foundation. Inside was a photo of a German Shepherd mix playing with 2 children and a handwritten note. "Dear Marcus, thank you for starting the Scout Foundation. Rex, formerly MWD Titan, has brought joy back to our home after we lost our son in Iraq. He seems to understand our grief and helps us heal every day. You're right. These dogs are heroes, but more than that, they're family. Thank you for showing us that." Marcus carefully added the letter to his growing collection, each one a testament to the ripple effects of that morning behind Rosario's restaurant. "We've helped 137 dogs find homes," he told Scout proudly. "Because of you." Scout's tail wagged, and he leaned against Marcus's leg, content in the knowledge that he was exactly where he belonged. As darkness fell and they prepared to go inside, a car pulled up to their house. Maria stepped out, Daniel Michael toddling beside her on unsteady 2-year-old legs. "Doggy!" the little boy squealed, moving toward Scout with the fearless enthusiasm of toddlers. Scout immediately lay down, making himself small and non-threatening. Daniel threw his arms around Scout's neck, and the dog remained perfectly still, only his tail moving in gentle acknowledgement. "He asks for eco every day," Maria explained. "I hope you don't mind us stopping by." "Never," Lisa said warmly. "You're family." They sat together on the porch, 2 boys and a dog, connected by threads of loss and love that had woven themselves into something beautiful and unbreakable. Marcus told Daniel stories about Scout's adventures, simplified for toddler understanding, but maintaining the essential truth, that Scout was brave and good and loved them all. "My daddy knew your daddy," Daniel said in his baby voice. The words not quite clear, but the meaning unmistakable. "They were friends," Marcus confirmed. "Best friends. And now, we're friends too." Scout positioned himself between the 2 boys, his body a bridge between past and future, his presence a promise that love transcends loss, that heroes come in many forms, and that sometimes the most profound healing comes from the simple act of refusing to give up on each other. The documentary aired 6 months later, titled Scout's Honor, a story of survival, service, and second chances. It followed Scout's journey from abandonment to honor, but more than that, it told the story of how one small boy's compassion had created a movement. The film's climax was Marcus's speech at a National Veterans Conference, with Scout beside him as always. But this time, the stage was filled with other children and their adopted military dogs, all graduates of the Scout Foundation program. "Every one of these dogs was thrown away," Marcus said, his voice stronger now at 7.5. "Every one of these kids was hurting. But look at us now. We found each other, and we're all getting better together." The camera panned across the stage, children who'd lost parents in service, dogs who'd lost handlers, all finding healing in each other. "Scout taught me that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared," Marcus continued. "It means you keep loving even when you're scared." These dogs kept loving even after the worst things happened to them. That's the bravest thing in the world. The documentary ended with footage of Scout and Marcus at home, the dog's head resting on the boy's lap as they sat on their porch, the same porch where their journey had begun, when a grandmother and grandson had returned from finding a crying dog. "Some people say I saved Scout," Marcus's voice narrated over the image. "But really, we saved each other. That's what love does. It saves us all." The response was overwhelming. The Scout Foundation received enough donations to establish permanent facilities in 5 states. A bill was introduced in Congress to provide automatic support for retired military dogs. Schools across the country started programs teaching children about military dog service. But, for Marcus and Scout, the greatest victory was smaller, quieter. It came the day Marcus realized Scout had stopped limping. "Mom, look!" he called excitedly. "Scout's walking normal." Dr. Carter couldn't explain it medically. The scar tissue should cause permanent stiffness. But somehow he's compensated. Or maybe, he smiled, Maybe he just decided he didn't need to limp anymore. Scout lived another 6 years, defying every medical prediction. He saw Marcus enter middle school, watched him grow from a small, grief-stricken boy into a confident young man with a mission. He was there when Maria married again, a fellow veteran who understood her history. He watched Daniel Michael grow into a little boy who looked just like his father. He was there for every milestone, every celebration, every moment of grief that still sometimes surfaced. His muzzle grew white, his movements slower, but his devotion never wavered. When the end came, it was peaceful. Scout was 13, ancient for a German shepherd who'd survived what he had. He'd spent the day in his favorite spot in the yard, watching Marcus practice a presentation for the foundation. That evening, he'd eaten dinner with his usual dignity, accepted pets from everyone, and settled in his bed beside Marcus. Marcus knew before he opened his eyes the next morning. The absence of Scout's breathing, the stillness that had replaced the constant vigilant presence. "Mom," he called, his voice breaking. "Mom, Scout." They buried him in the backyard under the oak tree where he'd loved to rest. The entire neighborhood came, along with Maria and Daniel, Doctor, Carter, Mr. Rodriguez, even Mrs. Patterson with tears in her eyes. General Hayes sent an honor guard. The flag that draped Scout's coffin would later be presented to Marcus, folded with the same precision given to human. Veterans Marcus spoke through his tears, 13 years old now, but feeling both ancient and very young. Scout showed me that love is stronger than fear, stronger than pain, stronger than death. He was thrown away, but he became a hero. He was dying, but he chose to live. He lost everything, but he learned to love again. He paused, looking at the gathered crowd, veterans with their dogs, families the foundation had helped, friends who'd become family. Scout's not really gone. He's in every dog we save, every family we help, every person who chooses kindness when cruelty would be easier. He taught us that broken things can be beautiful, that wounded hearts can heal, that love always finds a way. As they lowered Scout into the ground, wrapped in his favorite blanket, the one with planets that Marcus had first given him, a sound made everyone look up. A formation of military helicopters passed overhead, a tribute organized by Scout's military family. As they watched, one helicopter broke formation, it dipping its nose in salute before rejoining the others. "Goodbye, Scout," Marcus whispered. "Good boy. Best boy. Forever boy." The Scout Foundation continues to this day, having helped over 10,000 military dogs find homes. Marcus, now in college studying veterinary medicine, still runs it with the same passion he had as a 5-year-old boy. In his dorm room hangs a photo, a small boy and a dying dog, both scared, both brave, both choosing to save each other. Below it, a plaque with Scout's collar and tags, properly engraved now with his full name and service record. But the real monument to Scout isn't made of metal or stone. It's in every dog saved, every family healed, every child who learns that compassion is the greatest courage of all. And sometimes, on quiet nights, Marcus swears he can feel Scout's presence, a warm weight at the foot of his bed, still standing guard, still protecting, still proving that love transcends everything, even death itself, because that's what heroes do. They live on in the lives they've touched, the hearts they've healed, the love they've shown. And Scout was the greatest hero of all, not because of his military service, though that was remarkable, not because of the evidence he protected or the criminals he helped catch. Scout was a hero because a broken, dying dog chose to trust a 5-year-old boy's kindness, because he chose love over fear, hope over despair, connection over isolation. He was a hero because he showed us all that sometimes the smallest acts of compassion create the biggest changes, that sometimes a shared sandwich can start a revolution of kindness, that sometimes a crying dog and a grieving boy can heal not just each other, but an entire community. Scout's story reminds us that heroes don't always stand on 2 legs. Sometimes they have 4 paws, a wagging tail, and eyes that see straight into our souls. Sometimes they're abandoned, broken, forgotten, until someone sees their worth and refuses to look away. Sometimes saving one dog doesn't change the world, but for that dog, the world changes completely, and sometimes that's enough to change everything. If Scout's story touched your heart, If you believe in the power of compassion and second chances, please like and share this story. Comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Let's show the world that kindness knows no borders. Subscribe to hear more incredible stories of resilience, hope, and the unbreakable bonds between humans and animals. Together, we can make sure no hero, two-legged or four, is ever forgotten or thrown away again. Remember Scout. Remember Marcus. Remember that love always finds a way.